Hi everyone, my name is Artie Shevchenko. I'm ex-Googler, founder, and CEO of IntoPerf. Today we're going to talk about being data-driven in sports in 2021. But first, let me clarify one thing. This talk is not for analysts only. Actually, it is primarily for team sports coaches and even players. So that said, let's start. Experts all around the world are convinced that in 10 to 15 years, all successful organizations will be data-driven in all industries, including sports clubs and academies. Actually, as you may know, many of the top clubs are already going through this transformation right now. But in 15 years from now, likely all successful organizations will collect data, analyze it, and make decisions taking the data into account somehow. So the options you have are very limited here, right? You either transform and become data-driven, or you lose. If that sounds scary to you right now, then this talk is for you. When you Google data-driven, here is a typical picture Google finds for you. And I think it illustrates the meaning of the word data-driven pretty well. So what do we see here? All the data is in your hands, you analyze it, and now you know a little bit more about your organization, about club, about players, so you can make better informed decisions in scouting, in practices, in matches, like lineups, subs decisions, player recovery, tactics, etc., etc. And there is a consensus in the industry that successful clubs and academies, and those which want to be successful actually, they should follow this path. They must become data-driven. They must learn how to get a real benefit from their data. But let's imagine you're a coach. And as a coach, you carefully watch every practice, every match. You talk to players. You digest all of that information in your head, and then you, likely together with colleagues, you make decisions. It looks like a data-driven approach, doesn't it? Why collect and analyze any extra data? And there are several reasons for that. First, you can't judge everything by eye. Let's say we're talking about sprints or accelerations. It's almost impossible to measure them just by looking at a player. The second reason is that you don't have enough eyes to monitor all the players all the time. Of course, you can hire more assistant coaches, but then you would have another problem. How do you aggregate information coming from all of them? But let's say you're a superhuman and you can measure everything without any tools, and you can watch all the players all the time. Now you have another problem. There's just too much data to digest. And finally, as a human, you have biases and emotions, which also harm your analysis quality, especially during the match. One of national team head coaches told me a story. Basically, he was apologizing to one of his players after the match, because during the match, he was screaming at him. He was screaming at him from the bench, thinking that he's being lazy. But after the match, he saw the sprint numbers and other metrics and realized that this player was actually working hard. And head coach finds himself in such situations pretty often. I mean, this head coach. And I think every head coach, probably. So the first step of becoming truly data-driven is to start collect accurate data. There are several ways of doing that in sports. For example, one of the easiest ways of collecting data is GNSS, or you can say GPS player tracking. Nowadays, FIFA does the licensing for such devices, so you can collect accurate data from GPS tracking devices, and it's pretty cheap. I bought my GPS tracker device for, I don't know, $300. So that's the first step of becoming data-driven, collecting data, creating data lake. And there are many other ways of collecting data apart from wearables, of course. But what's important to get here is that it's the first step of becoming data-driven, collect accurate data. Now, let's say the data is being collected, but the problem is that raw data doesn't help you in making decisions. Actually, looking at raw data is often misleading. So we need a second step here, high-quality data analysis. And that's the hardest part. How to make sure that the analysis takes into account players' capabilities, their recent performance, team fatigue levels, weather, pitch condition, playing style, opponent strength, etc., etc. Potentially, good software can take all of that into account, But does it do so in practice? That's the question. Let's get back to our first illustration of the data-driven concept. That's exactly how output from most analytical software looks like. Some people are inspired by such images, maybe analysts or data scientists, but to be honest, to most of us, such images look scary, just because they're too complicated. So here is a typical way of thinking among the coaching staff. Even if experts are right, and potentially I might get a benefit from the data-driven approach, in practice, it won't work for me, or it's not worth the effort. So yeah, a common doubt here is about the return on investment. It's that simple. Will the benefit of becoming data-driven be worth of the onboarding effort? Let me repeat it again. A common doubt among coaches is, will the benefit of becoming data-driven be worth of the onboarding effort? And in many cases, the honest answer is no. Technology is mostly not there yet to offer you a good return on investment, especially when we talk about players' performance analysis. So too often clubs spend a lot of money on technological solutions and staff education, but get small benefits in return, just because it's too complicated. So if you want to become a data-driven organization, there are obviously two key requirements for the software. The first one is high quality of the analysis, verifiable, so that you can trust but verify, at least verify it from time to time. And the second software requirement is the easiness of use. And finding sports software that doesn't look like our image from the previous slides, it's pretty rare. So these are the two key requirements. Before we go next, I'd like to make one thing clear. Being data-driven is more about people and your organization than it is about technologies. So you can collect accurate data for a club, provide them with the best technologies, but if there is no culture transformation, I mean decision-making culture transformation, if staff doesn't learn how to effectively use those technologies, return on all those investments will be close to zero, unfortunately. And another important thing to mention, let's make a step back and take a look at a broader context. Data-driven approach is obviously not the key factor of success. Players and coaching staff are the key success factors for any club or academy. But as we climb this pyramid, there are actually many other things more important for a club than being data-driven, like their fans, for example, or their training base. Data-driven approach will make you stronger, but I'm not trying to say that it's something magical, something that will bring your team to a completely new level just by itself. But it will give you an advantage. As a CEO of IntoPerf, I should mention our platform at this point, which we publicly launched last week, by the way. When we just started working on the first IntoPerf prototypes 3 years ago, we've agreed on 3 key principles on what we want to build. First, we want to get the highest quality of data analysis. Basically, we want IntoPerf platform to analyze data in almost the same way the best coaches do, but with all the information being available for every player, for every match, and every practice, with unlimited computational resources, or almost unlimited. You remember our biggest limitations as humans here, right? We do not see everything, we can't measure everything by eye, and we can't aggregate tons of data in our mind. But computers can do all of that. So how to make it truly smart? IntoPerf already takes into account many factors in players' performance analysis, like playtime duration, substitution minute, players' abilities, when was the last break, how significant is the deviation from the expected performance, etc., etc. So that's our first top priority, high data analysis quality. Next, easiness of use. It was always another top priority for us. If you had a chance to be on our team meetings, the question you would hear most often is, can we make it more simple? Can we make it more simple? Because we first made a research to see what is already there, which options do clubs and academies have right now. We took a look at Catapult, Stats, Opta, Chiron Hago, ASI, Railtrack Systems, and many, many others. And all of them had something in common. They were too complicated. They may be useful for analysts and for data scientists, but not that useful for coaches. At IntoPerf, we're convinced that it shouldn't be the case. So IntoPerf is not another analytical platform for analysts. It's a platform for coaches. You do not need a statistical degree to use IntoPerf. With IntoPerf, you can do powerful analysis easily. Being smart under the hood and easy to use, as far as I know, is a pretty unique combination of characteristics. I may be missing something, of course, especially among internal top club tools, because nobody has access to them. Like you see on the right side, tools built specifically for Arsenal. But as far as I know, IntoPerf platform is a uniquely easy to use platform that does high quality analysis automatically. And yeah, understandable language is one of the key tools we're using. IntoPerf speaks your language, not scientific language. Reliability is our another pillar. When any of us talks about players' performance, there is always a key component there. It's our confidence in what we're saying. Often it's just a tone of voice that helps you understand how confident is somebody in what they're saying. So what we've done here, we've built in a very similar thing into IntoPerf platform. We call it confidence levels. IntoPerf clearly separates reliable performance evaluation results from approximate ones. So yeah, low confidence and high confidence labels are absolutely crucial for us. And finally, last year we did another market research among coaches and analysts, but this time regarding pricing. What we found out is that many potential buyers who would benefit from the platform have very limited budgets. So another big decision for us was to cut our expenses and offer a very low starting price. Obviously with some limitations, but the product is still very, very useful. So these are 4 pillars of IntoPerf platform. If that sounds interesting to you, please watch the next 2-minute video here on our YouTube channel. And with that, I'm done with this presentation. I hope that your transition to being data-driven goes smoothly, and good luck.